Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for inviting us. We did, Andy, do you want me to start and you can jump in, or do you want to start?
Go for it,
Okay,
please.
please jump in though. Yeah, I'm really happy to be in this space with you all to share this work that it's very much a work in progress, is a collective work. And I'm just a representative here. So please think of it like that. And it came out. I'm Patricia, like Stephanie said. I'm a faculty member in the Department of Geography at Indiana University Bloomington, and I study housing. I have been studying housing for over 10 years now, and I'm very passionate about it. And when I moved to Indiana 4 years ago, I found Homes for All and the Kepler Institute. It was during that pandemic, and I started tagging along the meetings and got to know all these amazing folks, and got to know Andy, and started hearing about how Indianapolis is one of the cities in the U.S. with the largest numbers of evictions. And I was really surprised by that, because first I didn't know, and I was shocked that a city, I never thought that a city like Indianapolis, it's only second to New York, which is a lot larger. So that was really shocking to me. And through my connection with Andy, who now works, he's the program manager. Andy, correct me if I'm wrong.
You got it.
Yes, of the TAP, the Tenant Advocacy Program that is through the city of Indianapolis, that places lawyers and tenant navigators in eviction court to support tenants. We started coming together, the navigators, Andy, myself, a few tenants, a few students, and put our heads together to kind of try to ask the question of what is missing in Indianapolis, to in terms of resources for tenants, in terms of spaces for them to come together and tell their stories, in terms of spaces for them to feel safe and also be empowered to challenge these realities that are really dark and very difficult for many people who experience them over and over again. So from those questions, we one of the answers we came up with was that it's really difficult for tenants to know what to do when they get an eviction notice, right? There are websites available. The legal aid organizations have websites that have detailed information, but they're all often have very like legal language that sometimes it's even hard for me to understand, let alone someone who is in like a difficult situation trying to figure it out if they're going to have a home the next day or not, right? Um, so we thought about creating a resource that could have information very readily available and in very easy terms to for people to understand. And we also thought about this platform being something that could bring tenants together in different ways, right? And I'll explain more how we've done that in the past and the things that we plan to do that in the future. But so that's kind of how the Indie Housing Project came together. We don't say we are or an organization or anything like that, because we're not. We are a collective of people, and we actually invite people to be in this collective if they want, or organizations to be in this collective if they want to. We meet, now we're gonna start meeting every other Friday in the afternoon. Is online, but we are also kind of open to changing the time for people to be able to join if they're interested. Um, and well, maybe I will open space for Andy to speak a little if you have something to add, and I can also show the website, or people want to ask questions already, they can.
I had a question.
Okay.
Um, I know that you're not an organization, but
Mhm.
is there an organization or any kind of legislation trying to be passed for rent control? My sister is blind and she lives in California, and
Mhm.
they have rent control.
Yeah.
I just I couldn't understand why we didn't have rent control. Is there someone working on that or an organization that's following up on that or what?
Yeah, that's a great question, Tony. Thank you. Yeah, that's a real problem. And we are not a lobbying organization. I know there are some other organizations that work more intensely in terms of lobbying the state house to pass tenant focused legislation, like rent control, or things like an escrow bill that would allow tenants to like retain their rent in a separate account, if there were problems with their apartment, to force the landlords to fix it. The real problem in Indiana, one of the real problems, is that the state house historically has protected landlords. And there are a few reasons for that as well. One of them is that a lot of legislatures are very closely aligned with landlords through the Apartments Association, which is the biggest, the lobbying organization in Indiana that donates the largest amounts of money for political campaigns in Indiana. So that's one of the reasons why they often will prevent tenant protection laws from being passed, and will pass laws that empower landlords to do, well, whatever they want, basically. So there are no tenant protections in Indiana, and those that there are some of those are some of the reasons why, unfortunately. But there are, like, Prosperity Indiana is an organization that lobbies the state house for housing laws and tenant laws. GMA, which is the Greater Indianapolis Multi-Faith Alliance, led by Rabbi Aaron Spiegel, who I know was in this space very recently. They also lobbied the state house for tenant protection. So there are people working on that front, but we are not. We don't work in lobbying right now, but we do kind of try to create a narrative that will first um, bring information to people, because I think a lot of people don't know about these realities. A lot of folks, if they're folks that are not experiencing it,
Right.
they don't know. So we need to bring information, like writing op-eds, writing blog posts. We're trying to get some funding right now to create like a marketing campaign. Um, and and yeah, and so those are, and changing the narrative about evictions as well, because a lot of the time the public narrative around it is that it is an individual failure, right? That the person failed to pay rent for whatever reason and they should get evicted, and that's very problematic, because evictions are not an individual failure. They are systemic, societal failure to people's safety and security and well-being. No human being should be evicted in any circumstance. That's what we believe. So I think changing that narrative is very important to us as well. That was a
Yeah, I
very
think
long.
so too. I think so too. I just wanted to add that I am a senior myself and live in a senior, supposed to be senior apartment loft apartments downtown Indianapolis. And they go up on our rent $100 every year. And they have the legal right to do that, and who as a senior income goes up like that? What, $1,200 a year? nobody's social security or retirement goes up like that, and there should be something there to protect seniors, and there is not. I just I kind of want to jump on board a person, the organization who's trying to protect that. I'm going to look more into it. I just wanted to come in, chime into you guys Zoom today to see what you're talking about. Evictions are terrible, but just for that reason, there are a lot of the people in my apartment complex that have moved out because they could no longer afford the rent. I'm just blessed with a daughter who will pay it, so I can still do what I need to do with everything else. But everybody doesn't have a daughter like mine. Everybody, doesn't have someone to help them. And it leaves them where? One girl told me that she was my neighbor, and she told me that she moved on 25th and Hillside. Very terrible neighborhood. The neighborhood is awful. She said, but it's $600 a month, and that's all she could really afford. She said she couldn't find anything less than that. So she moved there. I said, okay. And she's been having a lot of issues there, but that's life, I guess. And we continue to go on, maybe I should move back to California, huh?
Oh, good luck finding affordable housing. That's rough. I
Yeah.
did have to share the Prosperity Indiana that Patricia mentioned. I added a link into the chat. Actually,
Okay.
in a couple weeks on July 24th, they are having their Indianapolis regional meeting. And if anyone's not in Indianapolis, they have other regional meetings coming up over the next few months. But this is really important because this is when they're talking with those of us from Indiana about what issues that we're experiencing, and that will inform where they put their advocacy efforts for next year's session. So, and it's free. They typically serve lunch and then have several different roundtables full of conversation, and then they'll kind of huddle back up and have the tables report out. And it'll give you, if you haven't been before, they'll often invite a representative or state senator if they're available to also share, and you might even be able to like pull them aside for a minute. The Prosperity Indiana policy and advocacy team will be there, along with others that from all different sectors that are involved in housing and economic and community development. So it is an interesting opportunity to hear what's up and coming and concerns that we have, and to get your voice heard. So do encourage that if you haven't been before. And GMA is also a great resource that's in the chat. Patricia, I had a question for you and Andy, if I may. As you were putting together kind of this process for eviction and kind of kindly laying that out to make that clear, as scary as that may be, was there anything that surprised you, or, and you may not know this answer, I'm just curious, like, was there anything in the Indiana process that seemed any different than things that you may have already heard of from other states or countries? Just curious your initial kind of like how you initially felt kind of laying that out, how that felt.
In terms of learning about the evictions
yeah, like the process for that, like is it pretty straightforward state to state? Is ours like more strict and harsh to our tenants? Like I have a suspicion, but I haven't done any research of my own, so I'm just curious.
Yeah, Angie's probably a good person to talk about this too, but I'll just say Indiana is overall, compared to other states, a state that doesn't have tenant protections, right? So that's not unique to Indiana, but is definitely a state that is very easy for landlords, for example, to evict. They can evict someone in as little as 10 days if a tenant doesn't follow any of the some of the terms, whatever terms there are in on the lease, right? So it's very easy for a landlord to evict someone in Indiana, and that's definitely go.
Excuse me. How easy is it to say, for instance, you have a contract with or a lease with your apartment complex. And in that lease, it says they are responsible for this and that and this and that. The small print says it can be changed at any time, you
Mhm.
know, and that says that the amenities that you offer when you move in can be taken away from you at any time. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, if the fine print says that, I would imagine
Yeah.
so.
That's just ridiculous. You know,
Mhm.
our community room is locked where we can't use the community room.
Mhm.
I mean, it's getting worse here than it ever has been. You know, I've been here since the beginning, since they opened up in 2016, I think it was, and things have just gone downhill. You know, they've just gone downhill, different managers and all that. And I understand that Indiana has these rules for protecting the what they call it,
The
the
landlord.
renter, yeah, the
Yeah.
landlord. But how could they have had uh a a law or legislation like that without including protection for the resident? I don't
Yeah.
get that.
Yeah.
You
Thanks.
know,
Stephanie. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Mhm. Yeah. The other thing is very cheap for the landlord to file to submit an eviction filing, and that makes it easier as well. So a lot of these, what a change that we've seen as well in landlords is that a lot of them, after the 2008 financial crisis, a lot of investment firms basically started buying a lot of housing property, be single family homes or multifamily. And they've become landlords and they have all this infrastructure of managers of technology to manage these properties, but they're investment firms, right? So they're buying housing as as a financial asset for investment and then to sell it later, right? So and when they buy it, they can't necessarily immediately increase rent because they have to follow the terms of the lease. But if they can evict someone and the lease is broken, then they can increase rent after that, right? So we've also seen how landlords will use evictions as a way to increase rent. Andy, do you want to add to what I said?
Just want to reinforce that as far as state laws go, just reinforcing what Patricia said about Indiana state laws is very, very landlord friendly. Kind of lacking a lot of basic protections, just kind of basic common sense protections that we don't have. And then the other thing, you know, the protections that are available, the you know, enforcing the contracts, um, the leases, all those things need to be done. On the tenant side, they have to be done in a court, right? You have to know what form to file um, to make a motion to do this and do that. So there's a lack of access, kind of a barrier, I guess, for access for individuals to enforce their own rights, the few rights that are there. That's all gone through the legal system.
And I wanted to ask you and Patricia to talk about what is it called? I think a state rule, because 2 years ago, I think it was the city county council tried to pass legislation to force landlords to inform tenants about their rights. And the state struck it down, I believe. So, in the context of, like in the context of how to change this, one is like we have to look at what can we do locally. And so that's like kind of how y'all came up with the Indy Housing Project and putting lawyers in the court and those kind of things, because we don't have the policies. But in order to get those policies, we either have to figure out how to win over some of those legislators who won't support it, but if they're, aligned with the real estate association and those who own property and assets and not the local community, then the only other way is to find a way to vote them out and put others in. But it's only going to change by us coming together and, I guess, like Patricia said, changing the narrative, letting people know what's going on, and then figuring out ways that we can try to leverage that or bring about some change. But can y'all kind of talk about that, Andy?
Yeah, thanks, Miss Palmana. Good to see you. Yeah, I think of it in like the current situation, like here's what we have to deal with, right? And so so there's dealing with the current situation and the what is available to us today, this minute. But then there's also the strategies to change the situation, right? To change the policy. And so that's kind of how I silo it off in my mind. Like there's landlords are filing cases in Superior Court where my teams don't cover. We're not down in Superior Court. So we're going to get started down there with 2 judges. They're not able to put eviction cases back into small claims courts because the legal structure has to be there. But I guess that would be the ultimate policy goal, is for evictions to be in small claims only and not be allowed to be filed in Superior. That's a goal, and that's but that takes a lot of lobbying. And Ms. Pompano, to your point, you gotta unelect folks or convince elected officials in order to make a policy change. So that's, to me, again, that it's a 2-part. I think about it in those 2 different ways. What's the current condition? What can we do locally with or without even the city policy changing, right? What can we do today to improve things within the conditions, within the laws that exist? And then what is the strategy for the long-term strategy, the long-term hopeful strategy for influencing or changing policy?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll add to that real well. Go ahead.
No, I just have one more question for y'all about, have y'all found any judges that are willing to work with y'all, or what are y'all seeing in the courts in terms of the judges?
For small claims courts in Marion County, there's 9. So that's where evictions traditionally live, right? That's kind of their standard place where evictions are filed. All 9 judges, they're very special individuals. And I mean, they all operate within the law on paper, but they have their different nuances, and they you can get a kind of a wide range of results depending on which township you live in, which township it's filed in. And then on the Superior Court level, there's I've really only talked to the 2. There's 10 over there that get evictions sent to them. So that's kind of a newer project for me, and hopefully we can work with the 2, create kind of a pilot, show good results, and it can expand from there to the other 8.
Sorry, I was gonna say real quickly, the state has preempted some housing laws in the past, and that's what they do, right? They'll preempt something to be passed, or prohibit something to be passed locally. But just to kind of follow up on what Andy was saying, I do believe that we can do a lot locally. And one of the things is, one of the things that I think is missing in Indianapolis is something that exists, for example, in Kansas City, through the Kansas City Tenants Union, which it's a way that tenants can come together, inform themselves, right, and be in a collective to challenge these realities, right? Like, I don't, and that's, I think, one of the ways that the Indy Housing Project can contribute to that, right? We're not a tenant union, and we're not going to be. That's not our role. But we think about ways that we can bring tenants together so that they can, so we can think about ways to challenge these realities locally, right? And we've seen that happen in other places like Kansas City, so we know it's possible.
Patricia or Andy, when it comes to the local stuff we can do you have any like things that are top of mind that you think are less likely to trigger preemption from the state that the city or judicial system could enact if there was the will to do so?
Wait, go ahead, Andy.
Well, yeah, so I think there's plenty that we could try, right? Like, my thinking is, let's try it, and if they preempt it, then they preempt it. But we should we should try the things. I think locally, I mean, on another, it's within the issue. The whole issue is housing, right? I think locally we could shift a lot more resources into affordable housing production. I think we could staff up my team, and I could keep 10 or 20 more lawyers pretty busy. That's no problem. They got plenty of work. So I think those are funding choices, right? So I think that's not passing an ordinance, that's not passing a law, that's just moving some dollars around on a spreadsheet. I think there's things within the court system that judges can agree, if they reach a consensus among whatever decision making group it is, they can agree to, for example, hey, we don't think that evictions should be filed in Superior Court, they should be filed in small claims court. And but that would, I mean, the judges would have to come together, a certain group of judges would have to all agree. They're not, they're doing consensus mostly. They're not voting within that judicial decision making body, right? It's not a 51% of the votes wins. It's a consensus based typically. So small claims judges could agree that, what, when somebody does have to be put out, 2 or 3 weeks is our minimum. Or they could agree that the first eviction hearing is informational only. There's some things that could delay people being put out, and could also give them more time to access free legal aid, or get together, find a little bit more money, right, to get caught up financially.
Thanks, y'all.
I wanted to ask Patricia and Andy, because like during the pandemic, there was money, and I think it was made available federally, and then it came down to the state's level to help people with eviction so that they wouldn't get put out. But I don't know if those funds still exist. And Andy, when you were talking about allocating resources, is that an area too? Because I know in some cities, like before a landlord can put somebody out, if there are eviction programs that help a renter with their rent so they won't get evicted, they have to go through that process first and see if they can work something out versus bringing it to court. But one, I guess my question is, do we still have dollars available to assist individuals if they're about to get evicted to help them pay their rent, or have we, is that money no longer available?
The big city rental assistance program, that's not available. That came through federal COVID relief dollars and has been gone for a little bit. And I don't see any coming on the horizon. Now, I think at the peak, I think the peak month of Indy Rent, they put out $10 million. So, you know, even if it's you cap it at $2 million a month, you know, you're still talking about 25 million a year. It's there's a lot of need, right? And there's a lot of it would be a lot of money to put over there in that kind of effort. So oh my gosh, you had two questions. You had a two-parter. What was the other part?
No, I think I was
Oh, it
saying
was,
that we don't have that money now, and even if we had it, it would take a lot because there's a big need. And so maybe the better approach is what you said about, and again, I don't know, because like, and Alvin can kind of speak to this, when we look at affordable housing, we're like, you know, one house at a time, we're never gonna put a dent in this problem. So how do we actually, you know, bring about affordable housing so that everybody can have quality housing and it's within reason? And, you know, I don't know if it's building more houses or if it's changing the existing housing to make it more affordable. I don't know what the answer is. So I'm just curious about, you know, like how do y'all see it in the context of how do we make a significant impact? And I know you have to start small, but you know, maybe addressing housing makes more sense than trying to put money into eviction programs or renter assistance programs. I don't know. Just trying to get y'all thoughts about that.
You want to go, Andy?
put a lot of money in rent assistance, and I mean it. I would love to see that go towards, you know, creating the over 100,000 affordable units that we are short in Marion County. That's the need. Just by doing the math of folks' incomes and the amount of housing we have here. But I mean, I think either way, it's just a tremendous investment of money.
And I will also add, we need to keep them affordable, right? That's the whole thing. Oftentimes, affordable housing doesn't stay affordable forever, and people's salaries don't increase according to housing prices and rent at the same rate, right? So we always have this gap. So thinking about ways that we can promote or create infrastructure that will keep housing affordable, that will keep that would promote like decommodify housing, right? Or housing that is not being used as a financial asset, as a commodity, as a tool for investment and profit, but rather as a home for someone to stay and be safe and secure. So there are models for that, and you all are well familiar with that.
I was going to say thanks, Patricia. I've been out of the CLT game for too long. When I said affordable housing, I meant permanently affordable housing.
And yeah, I mean, rent control is an important one too. And there are organizations working at the federal level to try to lobby for that as well. But that's a long battle, but it's an important one, right? We definitely need rent control. Indiana is not alone in that, in terms of not having rent control, but it's definitely needed.
Mm.
And Patricia and Andy, I wonder if you want to take a few minutes to just do a quick review of the resource that you've put together with the Indy Housing Project Online and a couple of areas that might be of special interest to this group or you particularly want to point out. Would that be okay with you?
Yeah, like showing the website.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll be happy. Can I share my screen?
I think so. Hang on. Now you should be able to.
Okay, awesome. All right. Yeah, this is what it looks like. It's still very much a work in progress. We have some other things there that we're working on to create in here. But a lot of it is, like I said, kind of changing the narrative about evictions and putting out there that they're an act of violence, that they are happening because people in power have decided to maintain that model for specific reasons, and that we need permanent affordable housing for all. So one of the main tools in this website are the resources we put together for tenants, right? So one of the ways that they can access that is through this chat bot right here that is in your right corner. We've is like a chat bot that you can ask questions to it about evictions, about the process of evictions, about getting legal advice, and it will respond to you through an automatic process. It's not a person. It's answers that we created based on the experiences of the navigators that work with tenants 101, so they know the questions that people are asking. So I'll just do a demonstration, but I'll welcome you to check this out as well. But if you just write, I got an eviction notice, it will respond to you. I'm very sorry to hear that. An eviction can be very stressful experience. Were you given an eviction notice? So this is a little repetitive. So yes, we're still kind of improving it as we go. Were you giving a court date? So I'm just gonna put no, and it'll keep bringing questions to kind of lead you to what you need to do, right? If you got an eviction notice. So did you check my case? If you don't know what my case is, you can check that option, and then it will provide information about what it is. And the same answers that we have in this chatbot are also available here in the front page. There are a number of things that people would be interested in to learn more. So I received an eviction notice. I was locked out of my rental unit, which is illegal. I need legal help. I need help with rent. So people can just click on these and it will open on these pages that they can read more about whatever it is that they need help. This is the rental assistance page, which is actually, we put this here because they exist depending on the township you live, but it's very little. So it's very, actually, it doesn't offer enough to support everyone, obviously. But and these resources are also up here under tenant resources. And then we have the tenant organizing part. So talking about tenant organizing, what it is, and sharing some resources on how to do that. Some stories, some writing pieces about other process of organizing tenants in the red state, for example, and also some stuff about tenant unions. What are they? How they can be created? Some other resources as well. We have some other resources about healthcare, mental health, food, and clothing that people can click and see if that's something that they need. We make sure that people know that we're not in connection with these resources. This is an information page, so we try to consolidate all this information that is out there, so people can just come to this hub and be connected to whatever service provider or resource provider they need, right? And then we also have a blog that it's been a little slow, but our hope is that we can actually have tenants writing for this blog or creating art for this blog or audio, podcasts, videos, whatever. We are really open for this type of partnership. So if any of you want to be part of that, I welcome you to do so. Aprili here has written an amazing text that we'll publish soon. And then we also have a contact form that people can connect with us, sign up for updates, and receive updates when we have. So this is kind of like what the website looks like. One of the things that we are planning to do is our kind of next step is we want to create a crowdsourcing kind of tool where tenants can submit, for example, where they live, right? The apartment they live, their rent. It may be if they have problems with their apartment, right? And then we can start building a database of that. And for example, if tenants can find each other, right, in the same apartment building, oh, I also have a problem in my apartment, or they can learn about that when looking for an apartment. So I don't know, we haven't figured that out yet, but that's a tool that has been built in other places, and something that we can have in our website easily, and could be information is important, right? So that's something we have on our mind right now. But
I have a question, Patricia.
Go
So
ahead. Go ahead.
under the tenant organizing, are there any tenant unions in Indianapolis? And this is just for Indianapolis, this website, right? Indianapolis Housing Project. Are there any tenant unions here?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So I know there are organizations and folks working on organizing tenants. Like the Ross Foundation they're doing amazing work organizing tenants, bringing information, trying to bring tenants together. I don't know if they say they're a tenant union or not. But I know they're doing really good work closely with tenants. I know Patchwork Indy had a tenant organizer, and I'm not sure what work they're doing right now. I haven't connected with them for a little, but we know we have tenant leaders in our circle, and we are always kind of try to think about what are ways that we can bring tenants together, so they can be talking to each other, and we can listen, and we have some resources that we can use and make it available to them. So those are kind of some questions that we have, right? We have this platform. We've organized events in the past where we gave like tenants an honorarium for them to speak, to tell their stories, and to share like tenant storytelling is important. So things, yeah, those are kind of some of the things that I know of.
And Patricia, you mentioned, I think, some sort of every other Friday connection point. Can you tell us more about that and where people might be able to go to find out how to connect and what Fridays those happen on?
Yes, of course. So we have a Friday meeting. We have been a little off this month specifically because it's summer and we're taking a break, but we're gonna be back in August. It's usually the first Friday of every month, and we were meeting every other Friday. So I think we'll probably keep that pace. People don't have to join for every meeting, but they can join in at any time. And we often just talk about the things that we're doing, what are events we want to organize, what are resources that we may have available, partnerships, things like that. So it's a very open meeting, and we are a collective of people, so we welcome people to the collective anytime. And I can share the link to the meeting if people want to join. And you can always email me, and I can send you a calendar invite if you want that meeting in your
That's
calendar.
perfect. And is it okay for me to share this with that link to the Homes for All like newsletter, for instance, in August or September, just for another resource? Fantastic. Thank you.
I'm just getting the link here.
Well, I did want to say thanks for y'all's work on this. And back to Ms. Pambana's question, if we had that answer, well, we might it might be that's like I don't think there's one answer for that question about what do we do from here. And I did want to just do a quick save the date. On July 31st, we are going to have our Mumbo Jumbo community conversation focused on the Indianapolis Community Land Trust launch, and also launching the pilot project and starting to take in applications and in people who are interested in becoming residents. So save the date. That's a Wednesday, July 31st, 6 p.m. There should be food as well at the meeting. And it'll be at 3802 North Illinois Street, Suite B. That's the Alchemy Community Wealth Building Center, which we have just about finished our renovations in, opening coming soon. So we hope to see you there. And we'll be sending out emails about it coming up and some more information.
Thank you guys for all the information. It did kind of calm my nerves just a touch, but not enough to be happy. But anyway, thank you so much for your time and effort, guys.
Thanks, Miss Tony. Glad you could join us.
All right. See you
Thank
guys
you.
later. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, just our next meeting is August 2nd at 2 p.m. And I just shared the link for the meeting. So if people want to join,
Okay.
please do.
At 2 p.m. Okay. Okay. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Everybody, good night. Hey, Andy.
Reggie, haven't seen you in a while, buddy.
Good to see y'all.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
See you.
Bye, y'all. Thanks, Andy and Patricia.
Have a good evening.
Thank you. Great to see you.
Have a good weekend.